Yeah.
you know? And a lot of people, it's interesting because, the general public, they just think like they don't understand what's involved in a real estate transaction and all the moving pieces and all the players that are involved. It's a very complex transaction. Even, residential real estate, it still is there's a lot of pieces involved, and you don't want to get to that endpoint and have that problem. And that's why, in my process, and I try to tell this to agents I sponsor or just any other, sometimes people come to me for advice, other agents come to me for questions and things. And I'm just always like, look, you know, when you take that listing, you want to ask questions, right? So especially if it's probate, right? You want to ask all of these questions. And you know what? Don't try to jam the transaction through. This is one of the things, it's funny. At one point in my brokerage firm, I'm not sure if it was a little bit of insanity, temporary insanity, but I thought that my dream was just to have all these agents working under me, and I'm gonna have this huge brokerage firm, and I did. At one point, I had like 20, 30 agents. It was a lot of supervision. It was a lot of people doing things that I'm like, oh my god, why did you do that? And I'm like, maybe it's better just to be more solo. I'm also a little bit more profitable being solo. But the thing is that one of the problems that a lot of agents have is they're trying. I call it ramming the transaction through. In other words, it's like, okay, I got a client. Okay, let's sign him up. Let's just go 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 go, and then we'll figure it out later. And that's usually when you have problems, right? So you always want to, in the very beginning, ask questions. Okay, they're in probate. Okay, well, have they been appointed or not? Because if they have been appointed, you're not. You can't do business anyway, right? Some agents will sign people, they'll put people into listing agreements when actually the person has no authority. Actually, I'll tell you something interesting about that, Joseph, and I think you'll like this as an attorney. You probably won't like it as an attorney, I should say, is in the probate space. So this is actually kind of interesting. I understand it from a sales perspective. I understand the agent, they have a prospect in front of them and they like each other. They want to do business. And so it's like, they're like, okay, let's get them to sign something. So that way they're locked in. And a lot of agents that do probate around the country that do more probate transactions, as kind of their niche, they'll contact someone who has filed and they'll put them into a listing agreement. When you hear them talk, you'll actually even hear this on YouTube sometimes. Like they'll be talking, it's like sign them up as soon as possible. And if they don't become appointed, then you can just tear it up or whatever. And that's not the right order of business. That can get people into trouble, but that's not the right order of doing business. And even when people do it the right way and they start doing a transaction, they're rushing and they're not really focused on the client. They're not focused on where's this client at? What do they need? What's the process that's going to bring them to success? Not just getting a commission. You're going to get paid. If you do your job correctly, you're going to get paid. You have nothing to worry about. So focus on the client. And that's something that I feel, I'm not saying all agents, I'm not trying to throw them all under the bus, but a lot of agents, they're not focused on the client. And that's something I tell my prospects that I'm talking with. I'm just like, look, it's just one step. I do business completely differently than all other real estate agents. And one of the ways I'm different is that I'd like to just take things one step at a time, step by step. You're not ready yet? No problem. We'll just keep in touch. We're in follow up, but you got to have patience to have that follow up, right? You got to have patience.
Yeah.
Joseph, tell
Can I
me
just add
what
something
other,
before you go? I want to just comment
yeah,
a plus one on what you're saying.
thank
A
you.
lot of times, what happens when they rush this and they get them signed up, they undermine the trust of the person who's appointed because, hey, wait a minute, you signed all of this stuff before you were even appointed. So you had it planned that you were going to sell mom's house from the beginning. When were you going to tell us? And they may all have been at Thanksgiving saying, hey, you know what, if mom goes, no, none of us really live in this city. None of us are coming back. So we should just sell the house. I mean, that's what makes sense. Mom says, yeah, once I'm gone, you guys don't even live here, sell the house. But the fact that the paper was signed before before the appointment, before everybody talked, it creates that mistrust. You were trying to do something behind our backs. You were getting ahead of the game. And unfortunately, human nature doesn't assume you didn't tell me something because you're trying to keep me from having to worry about it. it's the opposite. You didn't tell me something, you must be trying to pull a fast one, or else you would have just told me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know
Yeah.
if you've kind of experienced that when you see these agents that kind of jump the gun, and then it winds up leaving a bad taste in everybody's mouth.